So, Andy, are you doing this? Or are you witnessing this in Baltimore right now? Everyone just with a collective clap and saying, so when does this start? Can this start tomorrow so we can try and bring on a Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery for the Orioles?
Yeah, I think fans are very excited, and I think they get ahead of themselves a little bit with when the spending actually comes about. This is a huge deal. It'll take, it could take a little while before something is finalized. It needs to be, first off, neither Rubenstein or the Angelos family has publicly announced this deal, so it's still in the sources stage that we've reported. It also needs to be approved by the rest of the MLB owners. So it'll take a little while. We don't know the exact timeline on when that is, but when it does happen, fans I know are very excited about the possibility. I mean, when you have three billionaires team up to buy a team, you imagine the spending power is fairly large, and could, reading tea leaves, I mean, it could change the outlook of what the Orioles tend to do in an offseason.
Can you document some of the lowlights recently from this ownership group? And when I say that, I'm primarily talking about John Angelos, just for people to realize how much things will change, or how low the bar has been set lately by some of the actions that he's done, and also just spending as if they are, one of the three or four kind of most broke teams in baseball, when we know that's not the case.
Yeah, well, I don't want to, put too much dirt on top of John Angelos, considering, I mean, he brought in Mike Elias, and that was a phenomenal hire. He got out of the way. He let Mike burn the team down and then bring it back up, and has committed to Dominican Republic Academy for international scouting. So there has been things behind the scene John Angelos really invested in. One of those things was not the major league payroll, as you mentioned. For a couple of years now, it's been Baltimore, Oakland, Pittsburgh among the lowest payrolls in the league. That has also helped in a way, with the losing, getting Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson. So it naturally is a little bit of a double side coin, as anything is. But I think they're at a stage right now where you have all these young guys coming through, and there was a New York Times interview with John Angelos, the chairman and CEO. I think maybe 7 months ago, where he said, in order to raise money to pay these players long term, it would likely be, you have to raise ticket prices and concession prices and things of that nature, which did not go over well in Baltimore, as you can imagine. So this, again, we don't necessarily know, but you're rejuvenating a partnership group in Baltimore with some big names. I mean, including, a legend like Cal Ripken Jr. Joining the ranks in whatever, probably a very small role, but just having somebody of that presence as part of an ownership group is a big deal. And maybe next offseason they go full throttle. Right now, it's been a pretty quiet offseason for the Orioles, and Craig Kimbrell's the big addition. That Mike Elias has consistently said they want a starting pitcher, a top end starting pitcher. For much of that time, it was pretty clear they were not going to spend, at least this offseason, on one of the biggest names in the market. A trade more likely. We'll see if one of those trades still happen, but maybe next year the O's will be in a better position to shell out for a guy like Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell, whoever that, somebody of that ilk next offseason, in the free agent market would be one of the top end starters.
So is that what we can expect? Maybe them to turn the faucet on is next offseason? Because again, they haven't done anything, and I think they're one of the best teams in baseball right now. If only they would go out and get somebody, a Snell, a Montgomery, whoever that person is, or even make a trade. I know they hold on to their prospects like candy. It's like, gosh, we have 42 prospects, and if we only have 40, we'll never survive. It's like, okay, guys, you have multiple middle infield prospects, multiple outfield prospects, multiple pitching prospects. You can make a decision and trade some away. Go get I don't know if Corbin Burns is on the market, a Dylan Cease, whoever it is, to help get you to the next level. They don't even seem willing to do that. So once this is all finalized, I mean, I'm hoping it's next year, but do we have any indication that it could be longer than that?
Well, Shane Bieber probably on that list as well of guys you mentioned. But yeah, that group, Dylan Cease as well, you'd think could be trade targets. They've spoken to basically every team in the league, all 29 other teams about trades. So I know they've tried. It's mainly at this point, Mike Elias has been reluctant to, I believe, I guess overspend would be the word, in prospect capital, doesn't want to spend too much of the prospect capital because teams know that this is the number one farm system in baseball. They know, um, that they could probably get a great player back, a player that's going to change the course of a franchise in return for maybe a rental or a 2-year, 3-year guy that the O's would get. So Elias has been very reluctant to completely jump, into that net and risk losing a guy. Who knows if a Connor Norby, or Kobe Mayo or somebody like that becomes, an all-star. And I think they want to keep their options open. Again, that has been a frustration for Orioles fans in Baltimore, that you haven't seen that. And maybe next offseason is really when it would be more likely. I mean, this could take 3 months to finalize, 4 months to finalize. It could take a while before the new ownership group actually has control. And then also, the new ownership group is coming in with a 40% stake. They for tax reasons mainly, until Peter Angelos, who is the owner, John Angelos is the control person right now, the son of Peter Angelos. Until Peter Angelos passes away, which we're hoping he's stays healthy, and we're not wishing that. But until he passes away, for tax reasons, it's not going to be a full transition immediately. So maybe next offseason the O's will be in a position to spend, but we're in a little bit of a unknown at this point. I think there's reason to be optimistic and hopeful that this is a sign that things will, I believe, as you said, the faucet will open. It could definitely be that, but we don't necessarily know until everything shakes out and we know exactly what the deal looks like, and we'll see.
Okay, so how many prospects can one team have? You keep saying Mike Elias doesn't want to give up prospect. I mean, everything you read, they have 20 plus major league prospects and multiple at every position. So I get that you don't want to give up a guy that could be a star, but isn't that the point of winning, right? You can't, not all prospects turn into, stars. They turn into good major league players. And how many times do you see guys get traded, turn into superstars in other organizations? I mean, it happens, but it's a lot rarer than coming up through the organization. Like, I'm not saying trade Jackson Holliday is the number one prospect, right? But if you have some guys in A-ball that you're like, okay, he could be good, or he could be just an average player, and you can get a guy that can change and get you deep into the postseason, isn't that a trade the Orioles should make?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say you're wrong. I think it's something that that's an opinion that has been shared widely, and I think there's some value to, I think there's some value to holding prospects so that you kind of internally know which is going to hit, which is not. There's also some value in holding them so that closer you get to spring training report date, teams might be more willing to make a deal for a little bit less than they had originally been asking for. So we'll see, in the 2 weeks between now and spring training, whether that actually shakes out. Teams might decide like, hey, we don't want a Dylan Cease to report and be disgruntled. Let's make a deal. Let's make a deal in the next 2 weeks and accept, maybe a step below, still a really good prospect, but a step below what we had initially asked for. Those are all things, we have to wait and see. But I mean, you're 100% also correct that there's literally not enough places on a baseball diamond for the number of prospects the Orioles have. And, some of that will be, you look at Connor Norby, Joey Ortiz. Will they make the roster out of spring training? We'll see. I mean, it's really competitive because you also have Gunnar Henderson, you have Jackson Holliday, you have Kobe Mayo. You have a glut of infield prospects that fit in with. You also have returners, Ryan Mountcastle and Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Arias and Jorge Mateo. You have a lot of prospects and too few positions to play them. Same thing in the outfield with Heston Kjerstad, a power hitting corner bat. Kyle Stowers, who struggled a little bit in his time in the majors, but still high potential, and Colton Cowser, who everyone in the organization believes that Colton's really going to come through and change. Obviously he came up 26 games last year, tiny sample size, hit 115, on the season, but they think he is a superior prospect as well. That can be maybe a left fielder for a long time for the Orioles. So I imagine it makes too much sense not to make a trade. So I imagine a trade will happen, but the O's are holding those cards close to their chest. They're waiting for a price that they are more willing to say yes to. And yeah, I would be shocked though if they didn't move some of these prospects at some point, because yeah, I mean you can't play them all.
All right, so let's finish with this. Can you see a scenario where things kind of fall apart for this team this coming season, or is it hard to see that when you witness what else is going on around the division? Obviously, the Red Sox have been, for the most part, a joke and look like the last place team again. But besides that, it's pretty competitive amongst those four teams. So can you see a world where, hey, they won a lot of tight games with Felix Bautista. Maybe they're not getting that with Craig Kimbrell. Maybe a player or two or quite a few take a step back with a sophomore slump? Or is it hard to imagine that Baltimore is not, 1 or 2 in the division and 95 plus dubs?
I could see a step back. I don't think it's going to be a major step back. Maybe they don't break the 100-win mark, but somewhere in the 87 to 90 win mark, it would still be obviously still a step back, but still a good season at the same time. But there is some fragility here. You can never have too much pitching, and if the team goes into the season with the same amount of starting pitchers they have right now, one injury to a key starter could really hinder them down the stretch. They don't have that much starting pitching depth, as you mentioned, without Felix Bautista. I mean, Felix was probably the best closer in the game last year. That injury really hurts, and you don't know exactly what Craig Kimbrell is going to look like. Obviously, probably Hall of Fame resume for a closer, but it is not at his peak. And there were other issues in the bullpen last year that hit and miss guys. You're going to rely on some guys having phenomenal seasons again. Ryan O'Hearn, phenomenal season last year. Will he, play at that level again? Will he almost hit 300 again? When previously in his career, again without regular playing time, he wasn't hitting anywhere near that level. He could easily, reach the, he could bat at a very high level again, and everything could click, and maybe they win the division. But this is the Yankees have retooled. The Toronto Blue Jays are going for it. The Tampa Bay Rays are doing Tampa Bay Ray things. That they're probably going to be in the mix. So this is a division that is never easy, and so you have to have an understanding as the O's that this is not a gimme. Just because you won the division last year with 101 wins, and you kind of maybe surprised people and how quickly this team progressed from worst to first. I could definitely imagine that, a wrong injury here or there, a slump here or there for the wrong guy could push this team more into a wild card territory. I still think they will have a very good season. You never know with more playoff experience now for these guys who most of them never played in the postseason before. You imagine that maybe they at least win a game in the postseason and make it a little bit more of a contest against a great team like the Rangers. Obviously went on to win the World Series, so that was a tough matchup. But you still expect it to be a good season for Baltimore, but maybe not to the exact height that it was in 2023.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and especially given the division. So that all makes sense there on that front. Well, Andy, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks for jumping on with us, and it is a happy day, so let's get at least a smile in Baltimore, right? This team's going to make some moves. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.